Hello, this is Corey Schweiss, coach of the Park Hill Central Rebels, and you're watching Parkland Sports Live.
Hi, and welcome to the Knuckleball Primetime live from the Barn Studio. You got the Mocs here, and I'm joined online right now with Coach Corey Schweiss of the Central Rebels. Coach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing really good. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for giving us a little bit of your time on game week this week.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we're excited. Parkland Sports Live will be on the call live from Park Hills this Friday, and you can catch all the coverage on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page and the Barn YouTube channel. Coverage starts at 6:20. You got the Jefferson Blue Jays coming into town. What do you know about them, Coach?
Well, they're not a bad football team at all. Watch them on film and stuff. They're better than Owensville, so we'll have our work cut out for us this week. We've got a lot to improve on from last week, so hopefully we'll be able to do that and play a lot better game this week.
And last week seemed to be such a unique set of circumstances with the weather, with the delay, you guys having to, I think, come home and then be up early to be back there for an 11 o'clock kickoff. Not a coach's, perfect scenario by any means. Do you think that affected some of the play with the guys?
I don't know. I mean, it may have. I mean, it was a long bus trip anyway. Anytime you're on a bus for that long, you're worried about, different things. But, at the end of the day, we can't use it as an excuse. We didn't play well. We had a lot of penalties. Those penalties aren't because we were on a bus or because we had to come back up the next day. Those are things that we have to fix. And as a coaching staff, we've got to get better at coaching the guys up, and so they don't make those mistakes again. And, it was a lot of adversity, but I told the boys it's good to have a lot of adversity, especially early in the season. I think it's good for you to go through that. We went through a lot of it last year, and I thought it built our character. So, we're going to not make any excuses, and hopefully that'll make us better down the road.
Is that when you kind of just mark as an anomaly? You don't expect those conditions again and those circumstances again, and you're just sort of glad it's in the rear view, and now you can sort of focus on the future?
Yeah, 100%. It's just kind of weird because it seemed like we didn't have any rain for like a month and a half, and then all of a sudden they rain in the forecast for Friday night, and then now I'm watching the weather this week, and it looks like the only chance of rain is Friday again. So it's just kind of weird because it's so dry and we need rain so bad, and the only time we got it was right during our game. So I think most of the teams around the area had to battle with it. So we weren't the only ones, and hopefully we'll get back to business as usual.
You mentioned the penalties, and we have to talk about it. How easy is that to clean up? Does it become a discipline issue? Does it become a technique issue? A little bit of both?
It was a little bit of both. We're a young football team. Some of the penalties were just honestly guys not understanding things. We got a couple face mask calls. The kids were, they didn't understand why, because they didn't grab their face mask, but, they didn't understand, and we didn't do a good enough job coaching because face mask penalty doesn't mean you have to grab their face mask. You can grab anywhere inside the helmet, whether it's in the back of the helmet, the side of the helmet, anytime you get a hand in the hole of a helmet. So we just need to keep our hands off their helmets pretty much. And sometimes you're going to get those by accident. But we were getting them toward the end of plays and stuff when we were just going in for gang tackling, which at that point we just need to be going after the ball. We don't need to be going after anybody's head. So, that, and, we had some new guys playing on the offensive line that really were coming out for the first time, and they would move up there when the defensive line would move, and the defensive line would just maybe be stemming left to right, laterally, not vertically. And they thought they could move when the defense moved. So again, that's just things you don't even think about as a coach until they happen. So we got that fixed. Hopefully our guys have a better understanding of those things. And then the other things that happen during the game, sometimes they're going to happen. You can't play 100% clean game all the time. You just want to be as close to perfect as you can. And, we'll be better this week. I think our main goal is to get better every week. I think every coach says that, but I think with the team we have this year, I think it's going to be easy to see improvements from week to week.
Coming off a historic season last year, obviously the big elephant in the room is all the graduating class that you had. all the skill, well, not all the skill positions, but a lot of the skill positions. But you mentioned, some new faces on the line as well. I imagine some challenges come with that. And this is really their first time, if they are a new varsity player, seeing that varsity speed in action. How can you prepare them moving forward?
Well, that's the biggest challenge, honestly, because, everybody's new to it. Jackson Jones is back, but he's playing quarterback, and the speed of the game, even if you've played before, the speed of the game is different when you're playing quarterback. Hayden Carver's back as our left guard. And other than that, offensively, everybody's back. Barrett Henson played some on offense last year, but his role has definitely changed. He's going to be more of an integral part of what we're doing this year. And last year he was probably our fifth option, sixth option. Now this year he's more like our first or second. So that's going to be a big change for him as well. And then on defense, we're starting, freshmen and sophomores in our secondary. We're starting some sophomores at linebacker, and we're starting some sophomores, a lot of sophomores on our defensive line. So, we have a lot of youth. It's no excuse. They're playing varsity football. We have to get them ready to play. But, the speed of a Friday night is definitely different than the speed of a Monday or a Tuesday when they're playing JV or freshman ball. So, it's hard to show them what it's like in practice because you just don't have that kind of players in practice to show them. So, it was good to get that first game under the belt for sure. We didn't play well, but we still were able to play well enough to get a victory. And then we can build on that. So, hopefully that's what we're going to be looking forward to week. We're going to try to get better and still play good enough to get a victory. And if we don't, we'll learn from it and, try to get one the next week. But the ultimate goal, honestly, as every coach would tell you, the goal is to be playing your best football week 10. So, that's what our goal is. And that's what we're going to have our mindset at. And we're just going to keep trying to get better.
You mentioned Jackson Jones and taking on a new offensive role this year. What qualities does he bring to the offense? Obviously he's a physical player. He seems like a defensive minded player, if I'm reading the assessment right. But what does he bring to the offense?
Well, he in that first game, he kind of brought what he brought on the defensive side to the offensive side. He's a two-time All-State linebacker. Probably should have been the Class 3 Defensive Player of the Year last year. Kind of got snubbed on that, I think. But he rushed for 150 yards last week. He completed his first 8 passes. So he was a dual threat guy, and that's what you want at quarterback. You want somebody that can throw the ball, somebody that can run the ball, and somebody that can take charge of the offense. And he was able to do all 3 of those things. So we expect him to just grow and mature at that position. He's got the tools to be a really good quarterback. He's built more like a running back or a tight end. But that's not bad to have back there at the quarterback position either, especially if we're expecting him to tote the ball some. So, the big thing is going to try to find a balance because it's going to be hard for him to play the whole game at middle linebacker, which is where he's been for the last 2 years, and then play every snap at quarterback. So we're going to have to find a happy medium to try to get him either a rest on offense or rest on defense at some point during the contest.
Sounds like you've seen the film on the Blue Jays, and they seem to be a run-first team, which you guys often are and probably are again this year. Do you see any similarities between them and you, and how does that help you with the game plan?
Yeah, a little bit. Their quarterback's probably a little quicker than Jackson. He's probably not tougher. Well, I can guarantee he's not tougher than Jackson, but he's quicker and he's probably a little bit more elusive. He looks like they want to run him. Anytime you run a spread style offense and you got a quarterback back there that can run the football, it puts your defense in a little bit of a bind because you end up, you either got too many gaps to defend in the run or you got too many guys to cover in the passing game if that quarterback can become a blocker or a runner. So, they present some problems, but at the same time, we're familiar. It's like you said, we're familiar with that style of offense because, we've either played it or we've played against it a lot in the last few years. So we still feel good about it.
We talked to Coach Atley earlier this week and asked him a question. I want to get your opinions as well. How important will the trenches be in this game?
Well, I think that, if you're going to ask me, I feel like the trenches are the most important thing in every game. So this game's no different. I think it's going to be important for, our offensive line to set the tone when we're on offense, and it's going to be important for our defensive line to set the tone when we're on defense. So we've got We've got a lot of players that we rotated last week on the defensive line, and our offensive line, for the most part, is going to be, in their second game now. We're going to feel a little bit better about it.
What are some of the, looking long term, looking the rest of the season, what are some of the goals for the Central Rebels this year?
Well, our main goal, obviously, is to get better every week. We're young. We knew going into last year that after those guys graduated, we were going to have, this year was going to be. Our thing is we always say we retool, we don't rebuild, and we knew that this would be a challenge for us this year, but one we look forward to. So our goal is to get better every week. We think that the ability of this team to get from week 1 to week 10 could be a drastic improvement. We do have talent. We do have some players that I think could end up being really, really good varsity players, but they've got a lot to learn, and they've got 9 weeks to do it. And I think most of us coaches are teachers as well, and we understand that students learn best when they fail. It's nice when they don't fail and they already know it, but you're really not teaching them anything then because they already know how to do it. But the students that fail and they learn from their mistakes, that's the most fun when you're teaching, and it's no different when you're coaching. These kids are going to make mistakes these first few games. And, hopefully by the time we're in the middle of our season and especially toward the end of our season, they're going to be playing and hopefully not making those mistakes anymore. And then you'll be able to really see how good the player becomes. And that's what's fun about it. We look forward to it. People say, man, you guys are going to miss those guys. We're going to miss them. But I'll be honest, the last 4 years, I haven't had to coach much. I mean, those guys were so good. I didn't really, we coached, but it was so easy, and it's not going to be easy this year, but it's going to be fun because the challenge is definitely going to be there.
Coach Jones is known as one of the best defensive minds in this area, maybe even in this state. Talk a little bit about your staff, if you don't mind, what their contributions are, and maybe what some of their roles are, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So Coach Jones, obviously, I think of him as basically a co-head coach type of deal. We've been together for 18 years now, I think. And we think a lot alike. And he pretty much runs the one side of the ball and I run the other side of the ball, and we give each other our opinions. And, it's just a really good partnership that I have with him. And then we've got some really, really good young coaches, Coach Calvert, Coach Bridges, Coach Bess, and Coach Strange are at the varsity level with us this year. They've all played for us. They're just very knowledgeable of what we do. They relate to the kids well. They're good role models, everything that you want in assistant coaches. And then we've got Coach Aholt and Coach Casey that bring experience, and they obviously do a great job helping us as well. And then we've got at the middle school level, I've got Coach Poley, Coach Glenn, Coach Fuzz Calvert, and Coach Mitchell. And those 4 guys all played for me too. So we've got a lot of guys on the staff that played at Central that are back at Central. And, we were going through it the other day. I've got 5 guys that came back and coached that have already moved on to other schools and are coaching other places as well. So, we've kind of created a lot of really good young men and young assistant coaches that are not only very knowledgeable about what they're doing, but they go about it the right way. And that's honestly, as a coach, the state championship was nice, but when I go back and look at it, that's probably one of the things I'm going to be most proud of is having those guys, because when I retire here in a couple of years, it'll be nice to know that the program's in good hands.
You mentioned being a teacher as well, most of your staff, if not all your staff, but know that you have taught math for a number of years, right? Maybe your role's different now, I'm not sure. But you have math in your background. How much do you think that plays into some of your coaching? Because specifically on offense, you're looking at angles, you're looking at where can you get an advantage, where can you out leverage somebody. Do you think that plays any kind of significance in your coaching?
Probably. I've always been good with numbers and math has always been kind of my thing. But I think obviously clock management, I feel like I'm really pretty good at that. People may have questioned last year because I was throwing it probably when we probably should have been running the ball. But last year was one of those things. I thought, we had balls that we considered 100% balls or 90% balls or whatever. And, I'll take my chances with our guys. And my goal was to keep the clock moving, but also get yards at the same time. And sometimes, that plays a factor in why we were throwing the football. But, that kind of it, as far as knowing when to go for 1 and 2 and all the, how much time we have left in timeouts. I don't really ever have to worry about that because it's kind of just a natural thing. It never even comes into play really, just because I'm kind of thinking about that way ahead of time. As far as the angles and the pursuit, I mean, that's just part of football. I may see that better because of that type of thinking, but I think pretty much everybody that coaches football, no matter what their background is, that they know about leverage and they know about angles and things like that. Because if you don't, you're probably not going to be a very good coach.
Well, you talk about that, and you sometimes can hear someone who might not know football as well. You are in a position where you need to eat up some clock, and you see a quick screen or something. But you, as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach, you know your team better than anybody. So you know that might be more of a high percentage play than actually handing the ball off. As maybe a layperson or just a casual football fan, that's hard to understand. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. When you're at the end of a football game, I watch football a lot, Saturdays and Sundays, high school football. And a lot of times I'm thinking, man, you can run the ball here 3 times. They use their timeouts. You give it back to them with no timeouts left. They have to go how many ever yards, and with no timeouts, that's hard to do. But at the end of the day, they still have an opportunity. So I'd rather, as an offensive guy, I'd rather take that opportunity and not even give them one. So I think there's ways to be creative and still run the football. Obviously, sometimes it can backfire on you. But I don't think, when teams are in those kind of defenses and you're just running the ball up the middle or whatever, you're pretty much conceding that you're going to go 3 plays and punt and give the ball back to them. And the situation may seem still good for you, but I'd rather run, some kind of reverse or, like you said, a wide receiver screen. If you throw an incomplete pass on that, it sucks. But you got to trust your guys and think that those are 90% or better balls that you're probably going to execute those and keep the clock moving. And then you complete those when the defense is planning for you to run, and then all of a sudden now it's a lot easier to get a first down and end the game on offense. So there's a balance there of what you like. Obviously, I'd take more risks like that last year just because of the talent that we had. You're probably going to take less risks like that, normal years, just because those 90% balls now maybe 75% balls or 70% balls instead of 95% balls. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to try to put your guys in the best position to win. And everybody's got differences of opinions on what that is. I mean, when you're a coach, you're going to be second guessed all the time. That's part of it. So even when it works, a lot of times you're second guessed. So, it's just part of it. And, as a coach, we just deal with those things.
How much of that do you think comes in with your experience as a coach? Because I've been around younger coaches and I don't want to say get desperate, but they're always looking for the big play rather than just being secure in the play call, trying to trust your guys as much as you can. And also, like, you guys have known to go for it on 4th down. So you might be working with the extra down. And does that go into some of your play calling?
100%. I've been doing it a long time. So I feel pretty confident what we're doing. And I know, high school football, a lot of times, whether a team goes for 2 or 1, or whether a guy goes for it on 4th down or punts, sometimes those things people don't even realize that you might be doing that because you don't have a good kicker, or you don't have a good snapper, or you don't have a good holder, or you don't have a good punter. And you might be thinking, well, I mean, if I go for it here and don't get it, I'm really only giving up 20 yards of field position, which is basically just a penalty. And I'd rather take my chances on getting the first down by going for it. And other times, I'm just going for it because I think we have a really good play, and I think we'll be able to execute it. And I do like to go for it on 4th down. I just think that in high school football, most of the time you don't gain much. I mean, you do gain stuff by punting the ball. Obviously, there's definitely times you need to do it. I think we punted like I think 12 times last year. I think the year before that we punted, about the same. Probably the last 4 years we punted a total of 50 times. Probably we may punt 50 times in 4 games this year. Our first 4 games, hard telling. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But at the end of the day, like we were playing to our offense probably the last 3 or 4 years. But there's been years in the past in the early 2000s when we started our success. Honestly, we were playing to our defense. We were trying to do ball control offense and run time off the clock and punt, play field position, do all those things. And we were winning a lot of football games doing it that way. And then, our offense got real good the last few years. We had some really good playmakers on offense, and we took more risks, and we tried to get as many possessions as we could because we thought we could outscore people. So, there's different ways to win football games. We've run 4 or 5 varieties of offenses over the years to try to fit to our personnel. And I think as a high school football coach, you have to do that because you have to do something that's going to be good for the people that you have in your high school at that particular time. And they're not always the same kind of guys. All we had in 2010 was a bunch of guys that were really big and strong and some guys that could run 5.3 40s. We were good with getting 4 yards in cloud of dust. We've had some really good athletes come through the last half a dozen years. So obviously we're going to sling it around a little bit more. And I think this year we have a good mix of both of those things. So hopefully we'll be able to have a pretty good variety in our offense this year.
A guy that I think highly of, and I think you have a lot of respect for, Coach Krupe, once told me, and it made a lot of sense. He's like, either one guy can change to the 60 players on the team, or I can expect the 60 players change to one guy. And which, where do you walk away from? Like, what's the best advantage to that? And it's the one guy changing, right? And it's knowing what you have and how you can use it to your advantage to help the team.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, I'm not going to try to ask a kid to do something that they're not good at. We're going to try to find what they're good at, and we're going to try to, as coaches, I think that's what you got to do is you got to try to find what your guys are good at, and then, put in an offense and a defense that will help them in what they're good at. And that's, at the end of the day, I mean, that's how you're going to be successful. You're not going to be successful trying to get a guy to catch a football that can't catch a football. I mean, it's just not going to work very well. So, if you've got some guys that are good at blocking, you got to take advantage of that. When it gets really hard is when you got nobody that can block and nobody that can catch, nobody that can throw, then you're in trouble. But hopefully you can find some guys to be able to be successful doing something.
One last one, Coach. I know you have practice this afternoon and you're getting ready for the game on Friday, but we're kind of talking about numbers and leverage and all these football things. How much do you get into the analytics? How much do you get into tendencies of other coaches, of other defenses, and what they might be doing and what they might be trying to look for to kind of scheme you?
Well, I hate analytics when it comes to baseball, but when it comes to football, I think you have to look at the tendencies of what coaches do and what teams do. I think I try to, as a coach, be very versatile, and so teams kind of are caught. They don't know what we're going to do because we run so many multiple formations and multiple sets and multiple motions and different things that, I would like to think we're hard to defend, but, some years it's harder to do those things. I know the last few years it's been pretty easy, but, it might not be as easy to do those things this year. And you got to be real careful on what you're doing and when you're doing them and making sure you're not giving telltales to the defense so that they know the play before your kids execute it, because it makes it a lot harder to execute a play when the defense knows what's coming. And then it's exact opposite when you're on defense. I mean, you watch film and you try to figure out what the coaches are doing down and distance, formations, wide side of the field. All those things come into play, and you try to figure out what you try to get in the head of the other coach. And Coach Jones is awesome at that. A lot of times he'll know what the play is on our sideline before they run it. And the challenge is to try to get the guys on the field to know it too, and, there's not enough really time in the week to do everything you want to do to get your kids prepared, because at the end of the day, this is, we got school during the day and we're teaching during the day, and you've only got a couple hours, but really you're only prepping about 8. I mean, you're prepping more than that, but you're only prepping your kids for about 8 hours during the week to get ready for the game. So, all you can do is your best and try to get those kids to be in your head as much as you are in the other coach's head, so that they can be prepared the best they can to win the football game.
I lied to you. I got one more for you. Do you guys do self-scout? You talk about Coach Jones being one of the best defensive minds in the state. Who else better to look at your offense and see how there might be some advantages to playing against you guys, and then the other way around?
Yeah, 100%. We're all the time. Coach Jones will say, well, this is what I would do against you. And then I say, well, this is how I would exploit our defense. So we know, because we've got each other, kind of where our weaknesses are in our offense and our defense, so that we know when other coaches start exploiting those, we're going to have a change up, obviously, because we expect that. And a lot of times we don't see it because coaches don't do their homework or they're not as prepared. But when we play good teams, obviously when we play a Valley Catholic, we're going to know that Coach Nagger is going to know exactly where our weaknesses are on both sides of the ball, and we're going to have to try to do something to change that up. I just use him as an example. He's not the only good coach in our area, but obviously Valley's program is one of the best, so I use him for an example. But yeah, there's no doubt. And with Huddle now, it's easier to self-scout, to see kind of what you do in those situations that I was talking about earlier. So, I think every good coach is going to self-scout to some extent. How much you do it probably depends. I think when you're really good and you've got a chance to be really special, you're probably going to do it more, so you cover all your bases. But I think good coaches are going to do it all the time.
Parkland Sports Live will be on the call live from Park Hills this Friday. You can catch the coverage on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page and the Barn YouTube channel. Coverage starts at 6:20 as the Jefferson Blue Jays come to the Central Rebels in Park Hills, Missouri. Coach, thanks so much for your time, and hope to do this a couple times throughout the year.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And it's awesome that you guys are picking up the slack, especially with KTJJ getting out of the area. So I just appreciate you guys doing it, man. It's awesome.
Good luck on Friday.
All right, thanks.